Boom, got it.
Hello and welcome. This is Jeff Bird of Jeffrey Bird Coaching, and we welcome you to this show. We got a very special guest with us today. He's been a friend for a number of years. He's a John Maxwell leadership colleague. We've done numbers of podcasts before, and we got some really special things to talk about today. So I would like to welcome Dennis LaRue Jr. to the show. Dennis, welcome.
Hey, Jeff, it's great to be back with you, my friend. Good to see you. I'm excited about what we're going to talk about today.
Me too. It's you just mentioned this to me kind of almost casually in a conversation we were having recently, and it's made not only a lot of difference to me, but a lot of difference to other people in my life. So your influence is spreading out. You know, leadership is influence. So just in mentioning this, you were leading the way to something cool. So what it was is we were talking, and you just mentioned, had I heard of this book called Two Chairs? Yeah, you got your copy too. Two Chairs by Bob Beaudine. And I had not heard of it, but I'm curious, before we dig into it a little bit, how did you come across the book, and what's been its meaning to you, and what made you think to mention that?
Wow. Yeah, Jeff, I had seen the book when it came out years ago. I just kind of scanned it real quick at a bookstore and I left it on the shelf. But
Wow.
recently, within the last 6 months, I was in a networking group and I was setting up some virtual coffees with people. And one person that I talked with had mentioned, hey, we were talking, and he mentioned, hey, have you heard of Bob Beaudine? I said, I recognize the name. And he mentioned the book, and I thought, wow, I remember that book. And I, I had a virtual coffee 2 days later with somebody else, and they said, do you know Bob Beaudine? Have you heard about his book? And I said, okay, hold on. Two different people, 2 different days mentioned in the same book. Okay. Spider sense is tingling. Okay. Knock, knock, knock. Get the book. Get the book. And I said, okay. So I ordered the book. I ordered Bob's other book. I ordered both of his books because they're connected. And the Two Chairs. And I picked it up and I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down. I literally read it like within 3 days, just cover to cover, 3 days. And it clicked. It was so immensely practical, so relevant, so powerful. And isn't that the way life is? It's the simple things that make the biggest impacts.
Right.
It's not the complex, it's the simple. And this book was so simple, easy to apply. And it was, in the military, we call it JIT training, just in time training. And this was just in time spiritual growth training that I needed. And it had such an immediate impact on me that I just started sharing it with everybody. As we were talking, as people would bring up questions, I'd mention the book, but primarily I would mention the 3 questions that were in the book. And we'll talk about that in a moment, and the influence on them. And that's what led to our conversation. And what led to this right here. It's amazing how one little change in your life, I mean, the title says the secret that changes everything. One little change that has changed everything for you. It's changed everything for me. And it's changing other people as a result, because leadership is influence. So this book was the pebble into the pond, and now we've got the ripple effect going all the way across the pond from shore to shore.
Right. It just amazing. And the time, I love that you said the spider sense was going off, because my wife always talks about her spidey sense. If she's getting that spidey sense, it's like, okay, I better stop and pay attention to this. So that's what got your attention at first. But I feel like, as far as the timing, that it was exactly the right time for me too. It's been a season with a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving parts, and a lot of them I had no idea how to put together. And this book has so helped with that. And it's talking about reading it cover to cover. This is probably the only book that I've read cover to cover in like a week, in like since I can remember. Aside from the Bible, it's my favorite book. I just love this, and I've been recommending it to people, like you said, the ripples spreading out. But the thing is, I've got another one of our colleagues on, John Maxwell Leadership. He's in Malta, and I was talking to him. I've recently been introduced to him, and he and I are becoming friends too. And he mentioned to me the other day, he said, the closer I get to Jesus, the farther I get from church. And I was like, wow. Not that church is a bad thing, or it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Sometimes it is. But what he meant was that what he's looking for is not ritual, but what he's really looking for is relationship. And the closer he gets to that relationship, the farther he's removed from ritual. I was watching a coaching session on Maxwell Leadership the other day, and this guy that Valerie Burton was coaching had been a minister, and he's not anymore. And he said, I didn't like the programs, but I love the people. And I think that's just the way God is. I was actually reading that in one of the Psalms this morning. He doesn't want the offerings and bulls and goats and stuff like that. He wants the relationship with the people. And this book is so relational. It's not written by a pastor. It's written by a businessman. And this is something his mother taught him. Hey, why don't you lead us into the questions that the book is premised on? Those 3 questions, if you got them there.
Yeah, the 3 questions are right here. I wrote them down. The day that I was reading the book was the 2nd of May of this year. And I wrote these 3 questions down, and I highlighted them in green in my journal. When I highlight in green in my journal, that is like, that's the spider sense of, you need to get this. This is not just a good idea. This is a God idea, and you need to practice this. So the 3 questions are this. The first question is, does God know my situation? Does God know my situation? The second question is it too hard for God to handle? And the third question is, does he have a good plan for me? So, you get these 3 questions. If you just answer them theologically for a moment, you're in Bible school or whatever, and these are the only 3 questions on the test, you're really happy because you're going to get 100 because you know the answers to the questions. We know intellectually the answer to the question. Does God know my situation? Yes. Is it too hard for him to handle? No. Does he have a good plan for me? Yes. But when we actually take those questions and we sit back for a minute, and we're not here taking a multiple choice or true or false exam. It's just asking the question out loud. I actually ask these questions to myself out loud. So that way I can hear myself answer the question and think about it before I answer. Does God know my situation? And everybody that's listening to this, your situation is going to be different from mine, different from Jeff's. But does God know your individual situation and all the complexities and nuances and all the things that we're anxious or worried about? And that's right, we do get anxious and worry. I do, we all do. But does God know the specifics of this situation? The answer is yes. And when you say that, does God know my situation? Is he caught by surprise by this? The answer is yes, he knows my situation, and he's not caught by surprise. So if he's not caught by surprise, is my situation too hard for him to handle? Is this one he's got to say, you know what, I can't fight this fire. I need to call in somebody else. No, he's got this. He can handle this, and he knows the way through. And so when you answer that question and to get to the next one, this is the best question. Does God have a good plan for me? Yes, he does. Now, you may have a hard time saying that at the time. You may say, I don't know. It doesn't appear this way based off of my situation. How in the world is this for good? Our minds start going that way. And sometimes that's us. Sometimes it's the enemy trying to push us in that direction. He doesn't want us to focus on really answering that question. But when we answer those questions, what I have found for me, when I answer those questions, read them out loud, and then answer them, it settles me. It's like the nuclear cloud settles to the ground, and I'm able just to take that deep breath and pause. It's like, okay, yes, these are all true. So if these are all true, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready now for the relationship. I'm ready for the next step of this process. I'm ready to listen.
Yeah, Dennis, I think about settling that cloud. That's usually the thing, because once I get spun up, I can more easily get spun up till I'm just a mess, And setting the two chairs practice. And really all it is just pulling two chairs together, setting aside that space to just to be still. And God talks about that a lot, waiting on God. That's where the chords get twisted together to make a stronger chord. And I think that a lot of times God lets us experience situations where we don't have an answer. There is no human answer. My sister, my spouse, not that I have a sister, but my friend, my whoever doesn't have the answer for me. Nobody can help at this point except God. And he lets those times where we're like, why are you doing this? And he's like, because I just want to be close to you. I just want to be near you. So I'm giving you a situation that you can't figure out. So you'll have to just come quietly to me and then be in my presence. Just be with me and listen. And he talks in the book a lot about also journaling, taking notes, getting a notepad out there and setting in that space and then just jotting down, and that thought that, when you're praying, when you're in that quiet space and you're praying about something or thinking about something and you're open, that thought that spontaneously alights on your heart that aligns with scripture, that's God's voice to you. And you talked about the specifics too. I love that one story that Bob tells, and he had a big meeting, a big presentation to give that day. And when he was at his two chairs that morning, it came strongly to him, you need to go talk to your boss about this. And he said, I usually didn't do that before a presentation. He said, but I went there and I laid out everything I was going to give him. And he said, hey, you really need to emphasize this point. And when he did, he kind of rewrote things, and then he went to the presentation. And there was one of the higher ups at the presentation in the other company, and he emphasized that point. And that boss came back and said, hey, I love what you did. I love what you're talking about. Yeah, we're going to go with that. Just because God gave him the impression that, hey, you should talk to your boss about this. And so when he did it and didn't just run off on his own, then he gave him exactly the wisdom he needed. So it's those little tweaks and those little things, or it's like, no, get this, don't get this, do this, don't do this, those little things, he's that concerned. He doesn't just want you to go to an endless array of programs and, do and things that you have to do. He's not dependent on you. It's the other way around. We're dependent on him.
Yes.
Oh,
that's so good. Yeah. He wants us to be dependent on him, and that requires us to be present in his presence. So often, even in the two chairs, I'm guilty of this. You put the two chairs out and you sit down, and I'm guilty of this with my wife. Like I'm in my office upstairs. A lot of times I will come out of my office and I'm walking down the stairs, and I know that she's right there at her sewing desk. And instead of waiting till I get to the bottom of the stairs to see what she's doing, to ask how she's doing, I just start talking. It just starts coming out. Hey, honey, I'm blah, 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 blah. I did this, and I got to do that. And I just start talking, and she'll call me out on it because she always does. She's like, hey, you're interrupting me, or all of these things. And I'm not listening to her. I'm not present. I'm wanting to get out what's in my head, but I'm not waiting and present to hear what she has to say, because it's all about me. So sometimes in the two chairs, I'm guilty of this. I'll sit in the chairs and it's like, okay, forget the pleasantries. I got this going on, God, and this and this and this and this. And I just start going and just throwing everything at him. And I'm guilty also of then getting up out of the chair like, okay, I feel better about myself and I'm done. But I didn't get any direction. There was no relationship.
Oh, I lost your audio.
Oh,
it's
did
me.
you? Okay.
Sorry about that. I think you're back.
Yeah, am I back? So I'll start throwing all of my problems on God and pour out the dump truck. And then now that the dump truck's empty and I feel better at least about getting it out, then I leave. And I'm like, I don't get the solution, or I'm not listening. I'm not present. It's all about me. And that's not the concept either. What I love that Bob points out in this book is he says, use the 80-20 rule when it comes to God. And here's the 80-20 rule. For every 5 minutes that you're in the chairs in that relationship with God, you get 1 minute to speak and 4 minutes to listen. That's powerful. That was a game changer for me. So if we're with John Maxwell and we're in the speaking industry and all that, if we're told we only got 60 seconds You got to get to the point and lay it out. And then listen for 4. That's us in coaching. That's pretty much our coaching. That's a great tool for coaching too, by the way, that same thing. So I've been really practicing, okay, I'm going to share that one question or that one area that I'm really working on with God. And then I'm going to listen, and I'm going to sit there and listen and wait for that still small voice. And that's an important thing too, is determining that voice. Because sometimes we think we have the answer and we've already got it in our head what the answer is we want. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm listening for that answer. And sometimes what God says is, that's not the answer. Like he talked to Elijah. The storm came by. Elijah's, woe is me, my life is over. And, I'm the only one left. And God said, okay, Elijah, here's the storm. Here's this. And Elijah's like, hey, he's got to be in these. And God's like, nope, I just made those. But then he whispered. And Elijah knew right away that was God, the whisper. We've got to be still and present where we can hear the whisper.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it reminds me, yesterday morning, my wife and I always start off the day with coffee and devotionals. And she was thinking about the things she needed to do during the day. And the more she thought about it, the more she thought that she had to do. And so she was getting kind of, a little antsy about it and stuff. And then she just calmed down for a minute. We weren't praying or reading the book or anything. And she thought, okay, she just said it out loud. She said, okay, I hear you, Papa. And she said, I just need to quiet down, just to be calm. I don't need to run harder at these things, which is easy to think we need to do. Excuse me. But, she just instantly just settled down, and just this quietness, this huge peace came over the house, the conversation, over her, over me, over everything. And we were able to just go into the day just very, very peacefully. And, I think that this has been around for years. When I read through Psalms, I used to understand it, but it would say every now and again, it would say Selah, Selah, Selah.
Mm.
And what it means is pause in his presence. That's how it's been translated into the Passion Translation, which I love. And I love seeing what goes on before the Selah, the pause, and what comes after it. And I was just reading that today. I was reading 2 Psalms, Psalm 40 and Psalm 62. And I forget which one it was in, but there was a pause. I think it was Psalm 62. And he was thinking about all these bad guys and all these things people were doing to harm him and all of the dangers around him. And then it said, pause in his presence. And the very next sentence said, hey, I'm surrounded by your glory. It wasn't that he wasn't surrounded by his glory to start with when he was thinking about all the problems. It was just he was thinking about all the problems to the point he didn't see the glory that was surrounding him. And I think so often I miss the love that he's got for me, the heart that he's got for me, because I'm just so spun up on the problems. And that pause in his presence opens the door to receive when I get in that space. And sometimes it's early in the day. I'm much more comfortable when I feel like I'm early in the morning before anything else is going on that I need to be doing. So if I can get in that space before anybody else is up and just kind of sit there and just listen. Last night I woke up like at 3:15 and was up for over an hour just jotting notes and stuff for an upcoming presentation and looking at the Psalms and things and just getting so much out of it. And when I shared it, what I got with my wife this morning, she was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. That's just wonderful. That just really changes my day. And I was, who knew? Who knew? And I eventually went back to bed and slept well, but just that time. And I was like, okay, this is the time I think I need to get up. And I'm just tired of laying here restless. And there was all kinds of good that was waiting in that quietness, in that still space where there wasn't a million voices competing for my attention.
I love that. I love that Selah. And that also, what the Selah leads to the shalom, the peace. When we have the pause in his presence leads to peace in his presence and peace from his presence. That's what you just described. And that's what was coming to me as you were sharing that. We all want that. When we focus on all of our problems, when we focus on the dilemmas, the situation, and all the negative outcomes of that situation, then we can't see the solution, and we can't hear from him the steps we need to take. We're he's in the room with us, but our focus is completely away from him being in the room. That's that. Oh, I love that. I love that example too. Just that early morning, that being in his presence, getting those thoughts, sharing those things. And it's not always coming to the two chairs with a problem. It's just also just coming to the two chairs to enjoy a relationship. Because there's some days, you know what, everything's going great. You're like, you know what, that's where you share that gratitude and share that excitement. And just, my wife and I often can be in the same room and we're not saying a word to each other, but we just enjoy being in the room together, doing the things that we're doing. And sometimes the two chairs is just that, just being in the same room and enjoying each other's company, not necessarily bombarding Papa with, Papa, I need money. Papa, I need this. Papa, I need this. Can I have that? I'm having this problem. I got this solution. Sometimes it's just, I'm just glad to be here. I'm just glad to be in your presence today.
And I think, when you say that, I think that's so beautiful, but I think it's not always that easy to get to. Because what I find with me is I'm almost much better with a problem, which sounds weird, but it's like when things are going well, I'm like, okay, what do I need to do now? What do I need to do now? What's my next move? What's my next decision? What does God expect of me? And it's like, the thing to learn is that he doesn't have an expectation list. He's not like, I'll love you when you check off all these, or when you get all A's, or when you win that award, or get that degree, or get that position. It's not that. It's like, I love you right now, right where you are, and I've got a good plan. It's never going to be about me bringing him and doing enough for him, which is what I thought for years, which really led to a lot of religious striving and a lot of burnout, which was not a good season. But it's like, no, the thing I missed these two chairs moments. I didn't understand how to just come to him and breathe and go, okay, here I am. What do you have for me? And just jotting those notes down. And, the other day I asked him, I thought, I was in a two chairs moment, and I thought, well, how do you want me to see you? What do you want me to think of when I look at you? Because I think a lot of times we think of a bad image, or have traditionally. I think a lot of people do, just an angry, fault finding, demanding God. And it's like, that's not the image he wants me to have. He wants me to look at him and see just a love beyond understanding. That's always been, it says of Christ that he was the lamb slain before the foundation of the world. Even before the world was around for us to mess it up, he had already come up with a solution. He said, I've loved you with an everlasting love. You're made in my image. I made you. I spoke the stars, but I made you by hand. That's a big difference. And it's like, there's nothing that can ever happen that will cause me to turn away and let go of you. There's nothing I wouldn't give everything just to have you, just to redeem. And it's like, sometimes that's just what he wants me to see, that he's actually that way. He's actually that good. He's not like C.S. Lewis once wrote that his impression of the clergy when he was a kid was that they gave the message that, he's so good and kind and loving, but certainly ready to torture us to death the moment he has the slightest pretext, and it's like, that's not him. He's ready to forgive us the moment he has the slightest pretext. He's ready to restore us. We were talking about the movie and the book, The Shack, just before we started recording, and we both love that. And I mentioned that scene where Mac, he's lost his daughter and he's so angry with God. And in the movie, it's played by Octavia. I forget her last name, but she's great at it. And he comes up and he's just like in a fury, and he says, how can you justify this? And she really calmly and really peacefully lays her hand on his and looks him in the eye and says, we're not trying to justify it. We're redeeming it. And I'm like, man, I'm not giving you answers to try to make it okay. I know it's not okay, but now we're going to make what's not okay, okay. We're going to love enough that it's going to become okay again.
Oh, that's powerful. That's powerful. And and the having that image of God, for people out there, it's like that, what you just described, how God is too good to be true. It's not real. We haven't experienced that. It's so hard to get past the descriptions of God, that we've been taught, or the images we have. One of the images I've had is, I'm a Air Force veteran, 23 years. I always look at him as the general. That doesn't mean it's negative. I've had great experience with generals. They're very strategic. They're bold. They're confident, and you want to follow them. But that's not all he is. That has always been the one that has resonated with me the most because of a lot of the military passages that are in Scripture, New and Old. And so, but he's not just that. It's so much bigger than that. But we want to try to create that image of him that best resonates with us. And, too often we get stuck in that image and we create an idol of that image, and we can't envision that side of all loving because we've never experienced it. We've never seen it on display. It's very rare that we come across it among human beings. But that's why he is, and that's why it's so important to get silent before him, so you can take what you read and be in his presence and experience that. And I haven't met a person that doesn't want peace. And in his presence is the peace we're looking for if we go through these 3 questions first and lay down all of our preconceived notions of the situations, preconceived notions about his abilities or capabilities to handle situations, and also trusting that his plan is far better for us in spite of the circumstances that we're experiencing, that it is good. Because everything that I know that has happened negatively in my life, when I'm going through it, it stinks. I ask the why questions, and I'm fighting and I'm asking, this isn't good. And I'm emotional in those moments. But then you get forward, eventually you see, there are times where I say, I can see how that worked out for good. And then there's sometimes I still can't see how it worked out for good. And I've got to trust that it is for my good. But sometimes that good is also to benefit somebody else.
Mhm. Yeah, Dennis, Angie and I, you reminded me of something else as you were sharing about that image of God and the general image. And, we watched for the first time A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, the movie with Tom Hanks portraying Mr. Rogers. And what we were so happy with that. It was so much more meaningful and impactful than I ever imagined. And I've been studying Fred Rogers and looking at his quotes and stuff now, and I just love it. But there was this one scene where Fred was supposed to be filming an episode, but there was a little kid there that was swinging this plastic sword. And he just wouldn't settle down. He'd been doing it for over an hour, and he was hitting people with it and just being belligerent. He seemed like he might have been on the spectrum, maybe, I don't know. But Mr. Rogers was just bent down talking to him, and he finally said, I bet that sword's really heavy. He said, you must be really strong to be able to swing it like that. I think you're really strong. And he was just bent down on his level. And then just after that, the little kid dropped the sword and he came up and hugged him. And I thought, what an absolutely wonderful approach. He didn't look at the problem behavior. He didn't look at how behind he was. And the studio staff was ready to fire him. They were asking if they could. He didn't look at his behavior and how it was harming other people. He didn't look at any of the bad. He just looked at him and he saw the value and he saw the worth and he saw what the little kid was looking for, even beyond his actions. And so many times I think we see God as just responding to actions and just, wanting us to get it better or get it right, when what he's doing is he's actually seeing to the inside of what's actually happening at the heart level. And we just want somebody to love us or somebody to accept us or somebody to, affirm us. And we're afraid that he's the last person who would ever do that. And then he comes along and does that. And he often does it in the 2 chairs moments, and then
Yes.
the next thing instead of being worried about all the other stuff we were worried about, we're just coming and we're just hugging him, just like the little kid with Mr. Rogers. And that's just a beautiful movie. So here we're recommending a couple of things. We got A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, we got The Shack, and most of all, we've got 2 chairs. So I know we're just about to the end of our time, but I wanted to hold the book up again so everybody can see that we both got a copy. Two Chairs by Bob Beaudine. Now, Bob doesn't know we're doing this. We're not affiliates. I don't think you are, Dennis. I know I'm not. But it's the best book ever. I've been buying copies just to give to people, just buying them off of eBay, get a cheap copy or something that's in good condition, and just so I can give it to people. And I think that the message of this, I'm so grateful that you introduced me to this. I'd never heard of it. But, as it occurs to me, as I look through different problems in the world, my personality is I want to say yes to everything and meet every need. And as I go along, I'm like, they don't need me to meet their need. What they need is to get in a quiet place with God and be still with him and just be at peace there and receive his heart for them. And then see what the next thing he's giving them to do is, and watch him open the doors that I could never open with all my effort. And I just keep seeing that. And it's freeing for me to be in that. It's like, it's not on my shoulders to meet the needs of all 7 billion people on earth. God's got the hard job of doing that. It's our job to just get quiet with him and be still and just watch him bless. And as he gives me direction and in love, and we just move forward in that, and then to cause other people to see that, lift me up as a testimony, just like he did David in Psalm 40.
Yes, it's just being the vessel. I mean, I remember our conversation. It was just you shared something and it sparked this thought. And I said, you know what? I'm reading this book and I think you should get it. And here's the premise of it. And look at the impact of it. Yeah, I'm not an affiliate of Bob. I've never met him personally. I'm connected with him on social media. So I'll send him a message just to say, hey, look, this is the impact that this book has had, and I know he knows it because his mom taught it to him.
Yeah.
But it's always good to just let people know when they've done something like this, that what they've done matters,
right?
And it's added value to people, and how God used him to impact me, to impact you, to impact those around us. It's just powerful. It's adding value, multiplying value, and then multiplying that value exponentially.
Yeah.
And we need more of these moments. Just the moment to pause, to hear from the greatest problem solver ever, the greatest in all areas, and that we get to have a relationship with him, and he loves us.
Yeah.
And wants to spend time with us. We don't have to get on his calendar. We're always on his calendar. We're always on his mind. It's a matter of us adjusting our calendar, our mindset, and just sitting down. And, I think even Bob said this in this book. If you knew you could get the answer to the biggest problem you had ever, if you knew that when you sat in that chair, you had a 99% chance to meet with God, or even a 1%, if you only had a 1% chance that God was going to show up, would you do it? If you had a 1% chance that God was going to show up, would you take the chance?
Yeah.
Everybody would, I think. But he says, I'm there 100% of the time. All you need to do is get in the chair, pause, use these questions as a pause, and I'll meet with you. I'm there. I haven't changed, you have. So just sit down. I want to spend time with you. Who doesn't want that? That's what we all want, to be valued and respected, and we all want people to give us time. How much more so when God says, I'm giving you that time. Take it. Take him at his word.
Yeah, I think Bob said in that portion of the book, he said, if you could spend the first 15 minutes of the day with Warren Buffett talking about your investments, or with Dave Ramsey talking about your finances, who wouldn't want that? But how much more the one who made them and gave them that wisdom, and who has all the wisdom in the universe, and he wants to apply it just so gently and so lovingly to you, because he wants good for you.
Yeah.
So again,
and he promised wisdom, and he promised us, he told us to chase wisdom.
Right.
He told us to pursue it like gold and silver. How much
Right.
more so in those 15 minutes with him?
Right.
So good.
So again, I just want to remind everybody of the 3 questions that the book is premised on. It's, whatever situation you find yourself in, and sometimes maybe you're like me and it's just in the mind and you feel like you've got a first row seat to the premiere of everything that could go wrong with your life, and that's what you're looking at. But God knows that. So the first question is, does he know about this? Yeah, he knows. The second question, is it too hard for him to handle? No, absolutely not. He's got Andromeda and the Sombrero Galaxy and all of the Hubble Deep Space. He's got that completely ordered. Yeah, he can order things for you. And the last question is, what is the last question? The last question is, does he have a good plan for your life? Does he have a good plan for your life? He absolutely has the most wonderful plan. He just wants you to trust him enough to be still with him and stop, like Psalm 46:10 says, cease striving and know that I'm God. And that's exactly what he wants for us. Well, Dennis, where I think our time is up. But thank you so much again for introducing me to the book. Thank you for the time to talk about it with me today. And I just hope I would encourage everybody to get this. I am so glad I did. I got it Dennis, as soon as you told me about it, I ordered it and then I started reading it and I couldn't stop reading it. It was another book I couldn't put down. The only book in a long time that I couldn't put down. And so thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for your time with us today. And I hope everybody will be greatly blessed by this and greatly blessed by the time you spend just being quiet and listening and watching the good plan for your life unfold. So thanks again to everybody viewing. Thank you, Dennis. And until next time, God bless you.
Amen.